Hello my fellow patriots, this is Alex with DVP Builds. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. First we're going to get attacked by my dog, and then we're going to be tackling a project that can be beneficial to other people that do this kind of thing. Behind me right here, that is my son's Ford E150 with almost 300,000 miles on it, and he uses it for work every day. When you have a vehicle with that many miles, you better expect to do some maintenance if you want to keep it going. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be changing the bearings in the front axle. I've never done this before, so it should be fun. That is the plan today, and hope you stick around and enjoy it. If you have any comments about it, if you think I'm doing things totally screwed up, I don't mind those comments either, because, you know, we all learn together. Alright, before we get started on this thing, I want to take a second and just show you some of the things that you'll need to do this kind of job. Tools are pretty important, and we have a slew of them. But as you can see here, these things right here, those are actually the shovel heads that are used when they set mobile homes. They put your anchors down in hurricane country. They'll put an anchor down, and then they put these wedges right in front of those anchors, so there's a lot of dirt prying against the anchor. One thing they're good for is putting your jack stands on them when you have nothing but dirt, and that's what we have here. So you put these shovel heads down, you make sure your jack stands are on top of them, and it gives you a big surface area to prevent the sinking of the jack stands. Next thing is basic set of wrenches, a socket set, a good pry bar for removing parts, a 4-way lug wrench. They're just easier to use. To me, I like them better. And the most important tool that everybody needs is a sun. The problem is they're the most expensive and the hardest to work with. So I'd recommend inanimate tools first, as much as you can work with and get away with, and then go to suns if necessary. We're going to get started here, and the first thing to do is very simple. Pull the cap off the center of the wheel.
I want to say something too. We were told that we may not have to use this tool here to pull have a hammer.
The slide hammer.
To take the bearings out with the front, but we will see once we take it off.
Yeah, nothing ever goes as planned.
We will see.
Alright, so popping off the cap. Next thing here, if you notice, we've got the jack, which is a very important tool. Already got the jack under the truck, but we haven't started to lift the truck yet, because one thing you'll find is that it's a whole lot easier to loosen your lug nuts while your wheels are tight on the ground. And I wouldn't loosen them much, just loosen them enough so that they'll spin free once you get the wheel off the ground. One of the things you want to do when you're getting ready to jack up your truck, if you have the option, is you want to set your emergency brake. You don't want this thing to roll backwards when you get ready to start doing work on it. And additionally, next thing you should do when you get that thing jacked up is something simple and sometimes overlooked. Safety should always be the first thing you consider, because in a lot of cases, you don't get a second chance to go oops. So anytime you have a chance to reinforce your safety, I just highly recommend you take a few extra seconds and chalk your wheels. Now that's what I was talking about with those little anchor shovels. You make sure you get your jack stand on it. Alright, we got the jack stands in place. We got the little shovel head plates underneath the jack stands. And just another quick note, going back to the safety thing, if you don't have to pull your jack out, leave it in there. It gives you a third leg to support the weight of the truck. At this point now, pulling the wheels off completely to expose the guts of the truck. And I want to show you something that I do whenever I'm working on a vehicle. Again, call me a safety addict, whatever, but some little things just don't take long to add a little more comfort to your life and a little less risk of disaster. All right, take your tire, throw it down on the ground like so, and get it slid under your truck. Just like that. That way, if something cataclysmic happens and that truck comes down, you still got 10 inches, 9 inches, whatever, of tire rim that's going to keep that thing off the ground. So if you're underneath it, you got to ask yourself, how squashed am I willing to get? And as long as you got a rim and a tire up underneath your van or your truck when you're working, that's all the further that thing is going to come crashing down if it decides to. Not a professional at this shit. Pulled the wrong damn bolts. Flat screwdriver and a little bigger hammer. Well, we're getting closer. I can see a bearing. That's a good thing. There's enough grease in here for 2 cars.
You didn't get grease.
I've got grease. Ah, shit. And I just figured out the best use for the tool called sun. Cleaning my tools.
Here.
All right, that came off. Always be ready to catch things that are going to come off the truck. And there's a bearing. Doesn't look too bad, but yeah, it does. And it's got some pitting, so we don't want that. It wasn't stuck or anything.
Okay.
But that is a good idea to clean, because that is sand and shit.
Right.
So that would end up,
Messing with the bearings.
yeah, it'll screw with everything in there. So you want to get this clean so that when you put your new bearings on there, you don't have debris in there
Yep.
fighting you. Reiterate, never ever have I done this before. So as I'm doing it, we're both learning it. And the trick is, everything goes back in the same way it came out. But take an extra minute and clean where your bearings are going to sit, because there is debris that builds up in here. So there is the inside, and we had sand around here. We had debris on the inside of the bearing cup, and that's what I was talking about. Get all that out, because the last thing you want to do is put brand new clean bearings in there with a bunch of sand particles and stuff, because cleanliness will guarantee that these bearings will last a long time. The other thing is with the spindle too, the axle that comes out, make sure that's good and clean, and get yourself some grease, because it's just, you should grease things back up a little bit. I mean, this thing had enough grease in it for about 2 or 3 cars. That's not our... says to put the back bearing in first, which is, it makes a little bit of sense, because the back bearing has a retainer that keeps it in place. The front bearing just flops out in your hand as soon as you take the nut loose. So the bearings are 2 different sizes. Small bearing goes in the front out towards you. Large bearing goes in the back.